Good evening and welcome to the public meeting of the Halton District School Board for Wednesday, October the 2nd, 2019. At this moment, I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is video voice recorded and live streamed from the hdsb.ca website. I'd also like to ask that you turn all your devices to silent mode. So all the trustees are present, though may not be in the room at the moment. And we do have Superintendent Pichetti unavailable this evening, Superintendent Podger-Barrick unavailable this evening, Associate Director David Bogue unavailable this evening, though we do have General Manager Renzella in the room. But I don't see any others. Okay. So this evening, Trustee Shuttleworth will be honoring the land.
Thank you. Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of the many First Nation and the Métis. From the Anishinaabe to the Attawandaron, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis, these lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather here today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honor and respect the four directions: land, waters, plants, animals, ancestors that walked before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of possible conflict of interest? Seeing none. Next, we're up to the agenda. So I sent out an email, sorry, Trustee Lau and Trustee Burns, I don't think I sent it to you, but we need to move an item that is currently 521, which is the audit committee report that is listed. We need to move it up to 422 as, so it's dealt with this evening as per our new practice. So is there any discussion on making that change or any other changes this evening to the agenda? Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Thank you, Trustee Rocha, seconded by Trustee Daniele. Thank you. Okay. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. So next we are up to the Inspire Awards. So everyone in the Halton District School Board community can nominate or be nominated: families, neighbors, related organizations, staff, students, and school volunteers. An Inspire Award is given to an individual or group that is formally or informally associated with the Halton District School Board who support our students and their achievements through exemplary caring, initiative, innovation, and creativity. Award recipients choose where they would like to receive their award, and this evening we don't have anybody that chose to accept their award at our meeting. But fear not, I will list the people that will be receiving their awards sometime this month in the place that they have chosen. So Jen Dundas and Sandy Gibson, a volunteer in EA at Fulgarwood Public School. Marianne Jazvik, an elementary teacher at Florence Mears Public School. And Judy Babineau, head caretaker at Alexander's Public School. So thank you to those recipients for all they do for our students in the Halton District School Board. Please do continue to nominate people or organizations who support our students and their achievements. We do accept nominations at the hdsb.ca website, and awards are presented monthly. We have no delegations this evening, but we do have a presentation. Number 231. Now it was submitted by Associate Director Bogue. Is someone standing in his place? Excellent. We have Superintendents Salmini and Hunt Gibbons coming up to the front. Thank you very much.
Good evening. We are pleased to be here to present some highlights of the 2018-2019 EQAO results for you. And for Halton, we're happy to say that it continues to be a good news story. So some noteworthy pieces. HDSB continues to outperform the province in all areas of the assessment, and this is a trend that we're very proud of. That's good. Yeah, no, sorry about that. We also want to point out that we continue to have strong results in grade 6 reading and writing. We've been working hard on narrowing the achievement gap for students with special education needs, and in grade 3 reading and grade 6 reading and writing, we have narrowed that gap, so that's noteworthy, and slightly in grade 6 math as well. We also continue to have positive growth for our grade 9 applied math achievement, and 90% plus results continue for our grade 9 academic math students. And we'd also like to note that although we exceed the provincial results in mathematics, we recognize that it is an area of need for us and a continuous improvement, so it will be an ongoing focus here in Halton. So we'll talk a little bit about the grade 3 and 6 results. You will note here that this is the percentage of all primary students meeting the provincial standard in 2018-19, and it compares the HDSB, the blue bar, to the provincial results. And so for grade 3 math, we have 67% of our students meeting the provincial standard, which is level 3 or 4 in the province. It is 58%. So in Halton, we have we're 9% above the province in that area. In grade 3 writing, 76% of our students are meeting the standard in comparison to the province at 69%. So in Halton, we are up by 7% in comparison to the province. And in grade 3 reading, it's 82% of our students that are meeting the provincial standard, and provincially that number is 74. Again, 8% above the province. When we look at our junior results, we have 56% of our grade 6 students in mathematics that are meeting the standard in comparison to 48 in the province, so 8% higher than the province. In grade 6 writing, 88% in comparison to 82, so 6% higher than the province. And in grade 6 reading, 87% of our students meeting the standard, 81% in the province, and so again, 6% higher than the province. We have been focusing greatly on results for students with special education needs, and it has been a focus of our current multi-year plan. So we would like to just share a little bit of information about that. We have certainly had some successes. We have narrowed the gap in a number of areas, including the grade 3 reading and the grade 6 reading and writing, and slightly in the grade 6 math as well. I only have a few slides to keep the slide deck down to share here, but here's one example of the grade 6 reading. And if you look over the last 3 years, we've narrowed the gap by 10% from 40 to 30% of a gap for students. So we're proud of that work. I have a grade 3 example to share with you. You'll notice in this case, this is our grade 3 math results. You'll notice that there hasn't been a great change to the gap. And I include this just to point out that this is work that we are committed to here in Halton, and will continue to work on in terms of all areas of the assessment and for all of our students with special education needs.
Grade 9 mathematics. So the grade 9 EQAO mathematics test is written at the end of your semester or full year math course. It is a different test depending on whether you're in an applied level mathematics class or an academic level mathematics class. So looking at our academic math results, you'll see consistently very high results with 91% of our students compared to 84% of the students across the province who are achieving the provincial standard. And I just remind everyone that that's the level 3 or a B. And so that's what the graph is representing there. In Halton as well, it's not an equal split between students taking applied and students taking academic. In fact, we have 3,698 students in the academic cohort reflected in the results there. And where when we look at the next slide, this academic math achievements or applied achievement slide, the cohort represented in this slide is 619. So we are disproportionate in the number of students taking each course. And in our applied results, we are again over 10% higher than the province, but this is the area of focus for us. So similar to what Tina has mentioned about junior math, then this is our focus is applied level mathematic results at secondary. The literacy test, the OSSLT, it is different from the others in that it is not reported on in terms of benchmark levels or a B or meeting a level 3. Rather, it is reported back to students and parents as successful or unsuccessful. It is a requirement of graduation. It is written once a year, usually in your grade 10 year. And if you are not successful on this, then you have the opportunity of doing again in subsequent years, or you have the opportunity to take a course called the Ontario Literacy Course, which will satisfy those requirements. So when we look to fully participating first-time eligible students and our results here, again, we can see that we are above the province and doing very well. I would mention as well that participation rates are tracked across the province, and on average, 97% of our students are writing. So we do not exempt defer, and we're ahead of the province in that as well, so that we believe that having students write in their grade 10 year is the appropriate time to be doing so. Just as a little bit of interest, we do look at breakdowns on all EQAO by different cohorts, and here on the OSSLT, just to give you a snapshot, we've shown you what the gender difference is between the two, and females have continued to receive greater responsive successful on this test. And it has been 13 to 8% depending. We also look at the breakdown for English language learners, students with special education learning needs, etc. But it's just different metrics that are also measured by this test. We also track cohorts because that's an important way for us to see if we're closing gaps over time. And so math being our greatest area of need and the greatest area of need in the province, we take our grade 6 students and we look to see how they're doing when they hit their grade 9 test. And so this is a good news story in both cases. First, academic math, in that you can see that the gap has been closed for just over 1/4 of our students who had not previously achieved provincial standard on the EQAO test. So you can see in that pie graph that 26% of our students rose to standard by the time they were in the grade 9 academic maths strand. Comparatively, in the applied level math strand, we have more good news in that we have gap closed for close to 50% of students from grade 6 to grade 9, and in that 49% of them rose to standard. As an overall, here we've presented for you all of the results with HDSB in comparison to the province, so that you can see that overall things in Halton are very positive. And that we continue to outscore the province in all areas. And EQAO remains an important tool for us in that we use it in a variety of ways. So our schools use it, the program department that Tina and I represent uses it, and the system we use it because it helps us in setting our goals and measuring our progress. And so this is just a very brief snapshot. Trustees were all provided with a very detailed slide deck in all areas, and leave it to you if there are any questions this evening.
We do have a speakers list. We'll start with Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much, and through the chair. Earlier this evening, I had the chance to speak to two individuals who are in our gallery representing Brock University, and I said, wait till you get to this report. Wait till you see the EQAO presentation. We are going to boast about our fabulous results here, and I think that you've done a wonderful job at doing that. It's a good news story. We have high achievement, we've closed the gaps, it's been very positive, and we're outscoring the province in all areas. So what's not to like about a report like that? But we all know that we have to continue to do better, and I know that there's plans underway to do so. My question of you tonight is, as you talked about the different metrics used to analyze the data, I wondered if there was ever a metric that was used for non-semestered courses in math versus semestered. Are we finding higher achievement in non-semestered? And at this point, I must admit, I'm not fully aware of how many schools actually would offer a non-semestered math program.
Thank you through the chair to Trustee Gray. So a couple of our schools do have non-semestered math, and in fact, one of our schools was recently written up by EQAO, and they shone the light on them and gave them some public praise for the work that they had done. Robinson has a program that they refer to as engineering, and it is a de-streamed math and science program. Now, we could argue that the program in and of itself has wonderful merits with the integration that they're doing, and that the time frame for semester versus non-semester isn't as important as the unique way in which they're teaching and integrating those concepts. But it hasn't been running long enough, nor is it large enough for us to compare. And we've also seen, so Garth Webb has a similar program in that they're non-semestered, and White Oaks used to be non-semestered and has since moved off of that. So there are downfalls to semestering, and provincially we moved away from desemestering years ago, and it has to do with student mobility and trying to join a school in the middle of the year when there's only 1 year long class. But we do have a few schools that are working and experimenting with that, and we are seeing how they're doing and learning from that experience.
Thank you.
Trustee Oliver.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm curious, you've mentioned that for students who who are not successful on the OSS-LT, that there is an opportunity for them to take an Ontario literacy course. How would they go about doing that?
Thank you, through the chair to Trustee Oliver. So EQAO is run locally by each of our secondary school sites, and that includes prep going into it and identifying students in need of remediation and practice before we go into the process. And then we wait for those results. So they write in the spring, we get the results. And although they're embargoed to the public, we at the school level know who's been successful and not successful for the purpose of timetabling. And so our schools offer a course that's paired with the grade 11 college level English called the Ontario Literacy Course. And so students have the opportunity to take that course, and that satisfies and ticks that box on their transcript as a graduation requirement. And if it's running in semester 2 at your school, you'll probably also sit the test a second time, because let's cover all of our bases. And so we know that they're recorded as previously eligible students, because they have written it before. And so the statistics associated with this cohort are of those who were representing second-time writers. 26% of them were then successful through their rewrite. 48% of them were successful through the course, and unfortunately 13% of them either did not pass the course, the course or the rewrite, and then are facing that the next semester as well, which is one of the reasons it's in grade 10, because it gives you a couple years to hit that particular proficiency level prior to graduation.
And so does every secondary school offer this grade 11 literacy course?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next is Vice Chair L. Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you for all of the, bless you, all of the information and good news. I, too, like Trustee Gray, I think it was, also acknowledged that there's some work to do with respect to math and students with special education needs in particular, which is where my question comes from. And that is, do we track the students with special education needs with respect to OSSLT results and how they fare on that? And also I wondered whether there is a provincial comparator with respect to students with special education needs for all of the ones that you've shown.
Through the chair to the vice chair, Al Harrison. Yes, the metrics are available for all levels, primary, junior, as well as the high school EQAO. And there is always the provincial comparator. On the EQAO OSSLT, because it's measured in successful, unsuccessful, and it's the same test regardless of whether you're sitting in applied level English class or academic level English class, successful is successful. And we do get a breakdown of number of students with IEPs excluding gifted. For the cohort that we're sharing here tonight, for us it was 58% of first-time eligible writers, 58% of those first-time eligible writers with IEPs excluding gifted were successful in their first eligibility. So we do track this much the way we do with math and in junior, and closing the gap for learners with special education needs continues to be a focus for us.
So thank you. I think that's great information and really interesting. I wonder whether students get a heads up in advance of all of the different options that they can pursue should they not be successful that first time around, particularly with students with special education needs where anxieties may be an issue. And for all students, I guess, you know, it's not a one-shot deal kind of thing. There are lots of other options to get through that.
Yes, through the chair to Vice Chair Ella Harrison. Test prep includes the mental and well-being preparation and talking to people about what's involved as well. If you are a learner with special education identified needs, then your spec ed department is working with you in terms of the accommodations that are available to you. EQAO has their own accommodation guide, and it's subject to change. So just this past year, they've added more about translators for English language learners, about the different types of accommodations that are available to people. And so each school is really trying to ensure that students that are eligible for accommodations are making use of them. And that includes the extra time pieces as well. Last year's year-end EQAO call in for all of the different board leads also included that they were looking at more changes coming forward for this year. So if we hear of those, we'll definitely share.
Okay, Trustee Shuttleworth.
Thank you. Through the chair to Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons. It's a great story. It's a really great picture. My question is, so there are the 1% in applied and 1% in academic that do drop. What my question is do we know how many of those students are on IEPs, or do we track kind of what I say, the why behind the what? So what is it that are seen as factors in their dropping sort of their points?
Through the chair to Trustee Shuttleworth, I like your why before the behind the what. The short answer is yes, and the reasons are varied. So there's no one answer that I could provide the Board of Trustees this evening. It is very specific to the cohort and who's there and the reasons, but we're very much looking at those pieces and keeping in mind too that when we hit math beyond grade 9 and 10, there are a variety of levels that students can take their mathematics at. And in fact, a student needs 3 math credits on their transcript to finish high school. Many of them will take more than that, but they do only need 3. And so there are other options and levels of mathematics for students to pursue. And there are also accommodations and strategies to help them be successful in the math level that they choose.
Okay, Trustee Amos.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you very much for your presentation and this good news, basically for our board scenario. I'm not a big fan of EQAO, but I've got to think, and I just want some bit of clarification that 1% really isn't significant when you think about the potential differences between tests and that kind of thing. So the fact that we may have gone down 1% prior from last year's results, is that truly significant, or is it more because of potential difference in tests and students and that kind of thing?
I'll take this one because Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons has that a lot. So through the chair to Trustee Amos, I think it's more important to look over time. So when we start to, like the data that I presented and looked at in terms of the gap closing was over the last 3 years what has happened, because you can see blips that go up and down from year to year. And so I think it's more reliable to look at a longer over time picture.
I would just add to that, it's a different cohort writing every year, so they're different children.
So basically that 1% is because of those factors potentially, so therefore 1% may not be different than the result previous. Thank you.
Trustee Shuttleworth.
Sorry, I just need a point of clarification then, please. So the 1% of drop are students, 1% of the population of students. So 640 students have dropped from achieving the level to not achieving the level. Is that correct?
Through the chair to our trustees, to clarify, I believe that Trustee Amos was talking about the overall results and the attainment when we see on the big chart whether or not we've gone up or down 1%.
Okay.
And therefore, is that a significant change in the scheme of things? And so our response is no, really. You have to track it over time, like a 5-year rolling average, et cetera, to have a better picture of how we're doing, because it's a different cohort writing each time. So, but to your point about looking at a particular cohort and say we're looking at 616 students who were writing grade 6 and then grade 9 applied mathematics, then when we talk about 1% in there, then it's 1% of the total
population.
cohort. Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just got a bit confused. Thank you.
Okay, so the Director Miller, do you want to say something?
Yeah, just a quick comment. It is a good news report. Thanks to Superintendents Hunt-Gibbons and Solmini on their leadership with our program department and with all our superintendents with their families of schools. It is good news in terms of our comparison to the province. There's no question that we've maintained that superiority over the province in many respects. No. But we are stubbornly still having challenges in closing the gap between our students with special needs and our students in without special needs. And it's we're trying many things and we're working very hard. We had a math strategy to work with those students, and it's probably too early to tell. And I think we hold the course or hold the line in continuing to try to do this. But all boards are struggling with this as well. And I think our program department and our student service department is working hard to try to figure out, because we must be missing something that we're not getting to support these kids in closing that gap. And I think we're hoping to get closer. And this year, as we have talked about responsive learning for students, knowing the whole child is the theme of this year's, really the raison d'etre of our school year with our students. We're hoping that will get us there to start closing that gap a little better. I know many of our teachers are working, all of our teachers at both levels, both panels, elementary and secondary, struggle with this as well, and are frustrated that despite their best efforts, the gap remains about the same in some areas as it has been in the past. So I think it's important that we acknowledge that part, that, yeah, this is good news, but there's still a problem that that's stubbornly sticking to, and it's hard for us to solve it. But I want to reassure trustees and the public that we're continuing to do so, and we've got the best minds in this board working with the best minds in other places to try to do that, and that includes teaching, EEAs, principals, vice principals, and our superintendents and program and student service staff. So I'm looking at the superintendents, including Superintendent Zonefeld, if they have anything to add to comment on that. Because, you know, we go through EQAO, and Trustee Amos made a comment about, you know, not the validity, the value of EQAO, and we use this for our multi-year plan, and it's a significant piece in helping us define or to find benchmarks from which to work. But it's important that we acknowledge where our challenge is and how we're trying to address it. So you don't have to comment, but I kind of sprung this on them. If they don't have a comment, that's fine. But
Well, we have another speaker, Vice Chair Al Harrison.
Thanks. Through you, Madam Chair, I just want to go back to OSSLT because it really is unique in this scenario in the sense that students need that to pass, to graduate from high school. They need to somehow check a box, either by taking an extra course if they're not successful or by rewriting the test. Has there been any movement to, like, should that be a requirement to graduate? I have a concern given the big gap in achievement on that test. And then, you know, one of our solutions is that these kids are taking a applied level English to fulfill that criterion which may or may not limit pathways depending on their threshold for taking extra courses. You know, when in fact it may be the test that's the issue, not a student's literacy. So I'm not in any way advocating that students without literacy skills should pass out of high school, but they're taking English courses where they're also graded on that. I find that one just very troubling.
Through the chair to the vice chair. So the merits of EQAO have been debated since the onset of EQAO, and I'm sure they will continue to be debated. But specific to the literacy test, the skills that are measured on the literacy test are the skills evident of reading and writing associated with the end of a grade 9 year. And so one of the reasons that everyone writes that test is because the EQAO is saying that we need to actually know what the unsuccessful rate within our province is, as well as it helps for other pieces within society too, to know who is struggling, what percentage of people are struggling with those literacy pieces. I wouldn't say that our students in the applied level Englishes are unable or unsuccessful in the passing of that test. Really, where we have students or teachers who will say that the test is potentially a little cruel is when we're talking about our essential level programming. Because when students feel that they have to fail something first before they can take the course, that's where we get into the merits of the test itself. So there's been a great movement afoot to be able to say that educators and administrators should be able to deem who should be the gatekeepers to who is able to take that course, and that right now being unsuccessful one time becomes a gatekeeper to actually being able to take the course. And there's been a lot of conversation around that.
Follow up, go ahead.
Yes, that's sort of what I was getting to. Like, that's not right. Anyway.
Okay, there are no more speakers. I want to thank you very much for all the work that you've put into this. It is good news, lots of data to dig into, I'm sure, and so where we can target resources as necessary. Okay, so moving on to the consent agenda. I'm going to put the motion on the floor. So be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the consent agenda action items and receive the information items for October the 2nd, 2019, moved by Trustee Daniele, seconded by Trustee Shuttleworth. Is there any discussion, or does anybody want to, hold on one second, anybody want to pull? Okay. Trustee Shuttleworth.
Hi, yes, I'd like to pull 2 items, please. Item M170088 and item M190113, please.
Can you repeat those slowly, please?
So M17-0088 and M19-0113.
Okay, so that's from the order paper.
Correct.
Okay, and so we're going to pull the order paper, and we'll deal with that first, and then I'm assuming Trustee Collard will come next.
I also want to pull 2 items on the order paper.
Oh, on the order paper?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are your items that you'd like to pull? It's nice and slowly, please.
M140158 and M160099.
Okay, so why don't we start with Trustee Shuttleworth's questions?
Okay, I'll start with M17-0088, which has to do with the introduction of Robert Bateman students grade 10, 11, and 12 next year to Nelson. I have been asked numerous times from the community about whether we are confident that we will be able to support the transition of students at September 2020 with the delays in construction that have occurred. Will the building be ready for the influx of all students from Robert Bateman next fall? And do we hope to have a transition time for students to come visit the school prior to their official attendance time to feel comfortable with their transition?
Through you, Chair Drabans, to Trustee Shuttleworth, I'll just start the one part, and then Superintendent Blackwell will take most of the question. About the building being ready, as the trustees know in the public, there was delays in getting approvals from the Ministry of Education on some of the construction. We still anticipate that we will be ready on time, building-wise, but I think it's incumbent upon us to say that we are starting some of the work, not all of the work. Much of the work has started on time, but some of the work, in particular the addition, is starting later than we had anticipated because of delays in approvals from the ministry. So it's important to know that. We believe we can still be on time completely, but I think we have to acknowledge that we are starting a little bit later with the addition part. So, and I'll turn it over to Superintendent Blackwell for the rest.
So I'll start, and if my colleagues, specifically Superintendent Eathoff, wants to add something, he can. Through the chair, we do have some updates that are available for the public to read and stay up to date. If you go to the board website and you search PAR implementation, if you even search, there's a Robert Bateman Nelson section, and we've most recently, I think last week, sent something out to keep the community updated with the progress and the phasing of the facilities work. I do want to add to what Director Miller had said in terms of the additions piece being behind a little bit in terms of the timing, but there is internal work that is going on that will be ready and is phased in. And specifically, I want to talk to the Community Pathways Program area. That work is being started in December, and it will be ready the end of May, and one of the things that you asked about was the transitions. So we've purposely planned that work is done so that students will have the opportunity to visit through the month of June. They're not just going to visit that space, they'll have opportunities to visit the rest of the school. We have transition days that will be in place. The school communities, the principals are just finalizing those dates, and school communities will be notified. They will be in May. The school, Nelson, will be empty as we had done with MMR, so that Pearson students had the opportunity to go to MMR. Bateman students will have the opportunity to visit their respective schools. They can set up individual appointments. That will be done at Nelson as well as at Burlington Central, because we know that the students are moving to do 2 different locations. And finally, the integration committees will be starting towards the end of October, and a lot of the work that will be happening will be shared on a regular basis to the board. So we'd ask families with any concerns to continue to look at the school websites, and there's updated information that links directly to the board website as well. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Collard. Let's share the moment.
So M140158, of course, that was back in 2014. We passed a motion that we would defer our decision on a second FI entry point. And the decision that came from senior administration was to no longer offer a second entry point. And so I'm wondering if this ought to have been grayed, since we are no longer offering a second entry point. And if so, then it should come off the order paper.
Through you, Chair Drevens to Trustee Collard, I believe you are correct. Well, you're certainly correct about what you've said. And for some reason, I recall us having a conversation that it should be grayed. But I think you're right. I think it should be grade, and it should be coming off the order paper, particularly since it talks about grade 5 as a second entry point, and we only have one school with the second entry point at this time, and it's phasing out, and that's grade 7. So I think this should be grade. It will be grade for the next board meeting unless there's something that I'm not thinking of, but I believe you are absolutely correct.
Okay, I guess we'll go back to Trustee Shuttleworth.
Thank you very much. Okay, so this is for M19-0113, which is concerning the adjusted boundaries for the elementary schools in ERA 102 and 103 as outlined in option B. And again, what my question is, again from the community, is what types of discussions are beginning to look at supporting transitions of those students who will be changing schools? And in that, not only changing necessarily the school that they're going to, but maybe the mode of transportation that they will be taking. And I think that's going to be directed to Superintendent Pettyfather.
Through the chair to Trustee Shuttleworth. So far, we have made a request and received the names of the students who will be impacted from our planning department. And we've tentatively booked our first meeting with our admin from all the schools. And that's where we're going to start this type of planning. We'll also be consulting HTS because the transportation side of things, they're very experienced in that. And they, for kids who have never taken a bus before and maybe taking a bus, they have programs to introduce that to students. So we'll use their expertise as well.
Thank you.
Trustee Collard.
Thanks. Back up the list to M160099. I'm trying to take care of some old business here tonight. We discuss referring the to policy, bylaw, and governance, creation of a policy that would go alongside the procedure dealing with public concerns. And of course, we no longer have a policy, bylaw, and governance committee because we've changed our structure. And trustees no longer are writing policy. We approve policy, but are no longer writing policy. So I'm wondering how the director would like to proceed on this. The motion itself is no longer tenable. However, the policy did not get created.
Through you, Chair Drevens to Trustee Collard, I believe you have to rescind this.
That's what I thought. Can I make a motion to rescind this item? Thank you.
I need a seconder. Okay, Trustee Amos. Okay, so be resolved that the Halton District School Board rescind motion M16-009.
The Wayne Gretzky motion.
I guess that's all we need, right? So is there any further discussion on this? We'll probably have to add this to our app. There it is. Okay, all those in favor of rescinding this motion? Okay. So, we're going to take this vote again after we've dealt with the consent agenda. Yeah. So, but it's good to know that, you know, it's probably going to pass. Okay. So that's the end of those two, both trustees. Anybody else have anything else for the consent agenda? Because I have one thing. And that is that I understand that there is a admin procedure that's not on this list that is has recently been rescinded. And I was wondering if someone could speak to that.
Through you, Chair Durbence, to you, Chair Durbence, and all trustees, we have rescinded an opening exercise admin procedure. The PPM that AP, that admin procedure was based on, was revoked in 2009. So it's not before time that we have rescinded this admin procedure, a mere 10 years after it was revoked. So it was on opening exercises. So.
Okay, thank you.
And opening exercises are articulated in the Education Act.
Okay, so we're not. Anyways, we are. So there's nothing else or no one else that wanted to speak to anything in the consent agenda. So, oh, sorry, I didn't see that. Trustee Oliver.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair, I do have a question, and it pertains to, it's a more general question around these admin procedures that are listed here. So we no longer write a policy, we approve it, and based on the policy, an admin procedure is created, if I'm correct. So if we want to revisit any of these that have been listed here, or if because we want to propose changes or just look at them, what would be the process for that?
Through your Chair Durbence to Trustee Oliver, I would suggest the process is when we get to the consent agenda, you ask it to be pulled, and then you ask questions of us as to why it's in there. The admin procedure governs our operational aspects of the board, so it's not really for trustees to change one or the other. However, having said that, trustees often spot stuff that we've either forgotten or could be better written or changed. So we're not opposed to that. But the only way to really do it is to, if you see it there, get it pulled in the consent agenda. Try to give us a bit of a heads up so we can prepare, because there's a ton of them. And try. I mean, that's not always, you can't always do that. I know that. And then we could have that conversation, because there may be reasons that something's in there that trustees are unaware of around our collective agreements or whatever. So that's the way to suggest changes. So.
Just to clarify and follow up, the one that I'm interested in is the naming of schools. And I do have a kind of a wording change, but I also have a concept that I would like to question.
We have a, so it does fall under governance, but there is also an AP. There's two things with that. So we do have a governance procedure for trustees, and we have an AP, well, and there is an AP for staff. So which one is it important that we deal with it right now, or do you want to go away and look at it and kind of, we can discuss what you're kind of looking at and maybe a question offline?
Yeah, I think I would like to discuss it with my fellow trustees, and then bring forward.
Maybe a committee of the whole might be a good place to do that.
So, yep. And I would suggest that the admin procedure really just tells us how we're going to enact what the policy of the trustees is, on what we are going to do around that policy. How do we develop a procedure for what the governance policy has said to us? So that's what that's about. So I think in this particular case, I think the suggestion of committee of the whole is the best way to go, because really you're probably talking about a policy change as opposed to an admin procedure change, because the admin procedure reflects what's in the policy.
Okay, so I think we can now vote on this consent agenda. Okay, so there's no other discussion that I can see. There we go. So all those in favor of approving the public session consent agenda items? And that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so now so it's in the moment, rescinding that motion. So Trustee College, you're moving to rescind the motion, and who seconded? Kelly. Okay, Trustee Amos is seconding the motion, and the motion is be it resolved that the Halton District School Board rescind motion M16-0099. Yes. Okay, so I'm just going to reset that topic. All those in favor of rescinding this particular motion? That carries unanimously. I'm surprised. Consider it rescinded. Okay. We are now up to 4.0, ratification action items. Approval of business transacted in private session. Vice Chair Al Harrison. Do we have any business from private session that requires approval?
Yes, we do, Madam Chair. And I will just get the exact wording here for you. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board accept the Audit Committee 2018-2019 Annual Report, Private Session Report 19116 from October 2nd, 2019, and I so move.
Seconded by Trustee Gray. Thank you. Is there any discussion at all? Didn't expect any, really. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay. Next, we are up to action items for October the 2nd. As per the amended agenda this evening, we have 2 action items. The first, I'd like to draw your attention to the recommendation for the 2018-2019 LTAP Boundary Review, Report 19109. May I have a mover for this? Okay, Trustee Shuttleworth, and then seconded by Trustee Collard. I'm going to read the motion. Yes, I have taken my breath. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board directs staff to recommence a school boundary review for the new, to recommence a school boundary review for the new Milton Southwest No. 1 High School, which will include schools in SRA 101, SRA 104, and SRA 105, with an expected completion date of no later than June 2020. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board directs staff to recommence an elementary and secondary school boundary review for the Samuel Curtis Estate Subdivision ERA 111, which will include schools in ERA 103, Frontenac Public School, Mohawk Gardens Public School, and Pineland Public School, and SRA 100, Nelson High School and Robert Bateman High School, as well as schools in ERA 112, Eastview Public School, Glass Spears Public School, Pine Grove Public School, and SRA 102, TA Blakelock High School, with an expected completion date of no later than February 2020. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board directs staff to undertake a school boundary review for the 2 communities north of Upper Middle Road and west of Brawny Road in ERA 114, Village Common / Chateau Common to the north and Deerview Common / Trodden Way to the south that are currently attending Heritage Glen Public School, ERA 115, with an expected completion date of no later than February 2020. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board directs staff to undertake an elementary and secondary school boundary review for the Acton community in the town of Halton Hills, which will include ERA 126, Mackenzie Smith Bennett Public School and Robert Little Public School, and SRA 107, Acton District High School, with an expected completion date of no later than June 2020. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board direct staff to undertake an elementary school boundary review for the to-be-determined area located at the southeast corner of Dairy Road and Regional Road 25, which will include Milton schools in ERA 119 and ERA 120, with an expected completion date no later than February 2020. Is there any discussion? Trustee Reynolds.
Yes, thank you through the chair. My question is regarding the Halton Hills boundary review that is proposed. Looking at the utilization rates of the 3 schools, Mackenzie Smith Bennett, Robert Little, as well as Acton, I note that they're all low utilization numbers, and the recommendation is to look at a reconfiguration amongst the schools. My concern is moving students through the schools certainly doesn't add more students to the community. So I'm wondering whether we are perhaps, or would the community need to know whether there would be a concern that that could trigger a program accommodation review if a school went particularly low.
That is an excellent point. The intention, and unfortunately Superintendent Podreberk is not here this evening, the intent would be to redistribute the students within the community, recognizing that there may be some impacts moving forward in terms of utilization. And if I recall at our last meeting, Superintendent Podreberk has indicated that there's significant interest in Mackenzie Smith Bennett School for community uses, which if we were to move forward with, or the board is to move forward with a approved recommendation on the movement of students in the creation of a 7 to 12 school at Acton District High School and creating 2 JK to 6 schools, that there are community users out there that are quite interested in using the excess space at MSB, and therefore potentially up to 8 rooms. Again, we're still kind of discussing that. It depends on what the outcome is going to be, which would in turn reduce the OTG of that school. So that is some of the thought process with respect to that.
Through you, Chair Drabens, to Trustee Reynolds, further to General Manager Renzella's comments, in Halton Hills, we do have a higher percentage of smaller schools, but they're also our most rural schools in the board, and we have no intention of bringing a recommendation to this board anytime in the near or far future for a recommendation around a PAR. Given the rural nature of those schools and the communities they serve, that's the case. Mackenzie Smith Bennett's slightly different. Mackenzie Smith Bennett, as General Manager Renzella has said, there are many community groups that have expressed a desire to come and work in that school. And for those of us around this table and those people in Acton know that that would be very welcomed. There's a need in that school, and this would be helpful. The primary motive for this is, maybe not motive, but one of the primary drivers of this is to provide students in Mackenzie Smith Bennett, even though there'll be kids from Robert Little as well, to experience Acton High School. There are students that leave Acton High School and they prefer to go to another school and another board. And we think it's important that if we give them an opportunity to start Acton earlier, they will stay in what's a very good high school. There's no question Acton's a great school. So that's part of it. And it'll make everything a little more cohesive in Halton Hills. But I can assure the trustees, and I was asked this, and Chair Drabentz was with me, and Trustee Gray, they asked me specifically about one school. They asked me about Limehouse, but I can assure you that we have no intention, zero intention, absolutely nada, to bring a recommendation to this board to start a program and accommodation review in Halton Hills around some of those smaller schools. And Superintendent Newton's got a couple of comments that she'd like to add as well.
And through the chair to Director Miller as well. Superintendent Potterberg also in discussions, particularly with the great teachings that we've seen at our 7 to 12 schools in Burlington, would like to have that opportunity for students in Acton to be able to form a school from 7 to 12. We feel the needs there can be accommodated in the space that is there if the community so decides to do that, that we feel that that would be a great integral part and build some nice strong bonds there for families to then remain in Acton for their high school experience because they have had those early doors open in grade 7 to 8.
Okay, great. So there are no more speakers on the speakers list. So now we're up to voting on this monster motion. We'll just use one. We'll do one motion. Nobody asked for division, so we're not doing it. If you really want me to, I have to. Okay, so all those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Our staff and trustees will have a lot of work ahead of us. Okay. So now we're on to the next item, which was moved from our section 5 to 4.22. I'd like to draw your attention to the recommendation pertaining to the Audit Committee Annual Report to Board of Trustees / Ministry Report 19115, submitted by Trustee Gray as Chair of the Audit Committee, found on page 22 of your board package. May I have a mover? A Trustee Reynolds, seconded by Trustee Collard. I'm going to read the recommendation. You submitted it. Okay, be it resolved that the Halton District School Board Board of Trustees accept the 2018-2019 Audit Committee Annual Report to the Board of Trustees and the 2018-2019 Annual Report to the Ministry. Is there any discussion at all on this report? Would you like to say something? Oh, okay, that would be lovely. Go right ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. Both of these annual reports, as found in your package, contain the information prescribed under the Ontario Regulation 36110, Section 15, Part 1. Specifically, the reports contain information on the scope and extent of the work of the external auditor and the regional internal audit team. In addition, these reports provide an outline of the work performed by the Audit Committee during the 2018-19 school year. Thank you.
Excellent. So I see no speakers on the speakers list. So we will just move through. Okay. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're up to communications to the board. First off, number 5.1, student trustee reports. Trustee Lowen Burns, do you have a report for us?
Good evening, all. In the last 2 weeks, Trustee Lau and I have been very busy, largely due to the first meeting of the 2019-2020 HGSB Student Senate. In this first meeting, Trustee Lau and I outlined the structure of the Student Senate and asked student senators on issues that they would like to see addressed within the HGSB. Senators expressed a wide variety of interests, such as strong support of investigating mental health and environmental issues within the board. Notably, student senators were especially supportive of one specific board initiative that pertains to the environment. When asked about the idea that the HGSB declare a climate emergency, many student senators were shocked that the board had not done so already. Now that the first meeting has concluded, Trustee Lau and I are going to reintroduce the topic to both elementary and secondary senators for the next Student Senate meeting on October 29th, in the hope that the Student Senate may have a longer, more conductive discussion on the matter and that an official vote may be tallied on the opinion of the Student Senate. Trustee Lau and I would also like to personally thank all board members that chose to attend our meeting.
Thank you, Trustee Burns. Now I'll be covering our upcoming goals and what we've been up to. Firstly, I'd like to follow up on the idea of moving the Student Senate to the Milton Adult Learning Center as opposed to the historical meeting place of the JWS Singleton Center. We brought forth this idea to our Senate, and most senators voiced their support for a central meeting place, as it will allow for all senators to have the equal opportunity to attend these Senate meetings. Trustee Burns and I will bring forth an official motion at the next Senate meeting, as well look into the logistics a bit more that go along with this change as soon as possible. Moreover, senators have been given the opportunity to apply for executive positions, which include a director of communications, regional directors, HYLS operation managers, a secretary, and a few other positions. This year, we can't wait to work with some exceptional leaders in our board, and we are very excited to see senators take on an additional leadership position to help Trustee Burns and I throughout our term. Finally, on that note of additional leadership opportunities, a few senators expressed their interest in potentially being involved in board committees. So we'd like to hear from any trustees who would like some form of student representation this year on their committees. Thank you.
Okay. You go ahead and ask a question.
Through Chair Durance to Trustee Lau, is the student Senate meeting is next Tuesday, correct? Or the Tuesday after?
So we have Senate meetings every month, and we just had our last one last week. So the next one is October 29th.
Okay, so that's fine.
Okay, Vice Chair Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, thank you very much for the report. And I believe there's interest in having students sit on the environmental management team again this year, so that will be great. And further, I think that through those reps, it'll be great to further bring forward student voice related to the climate emergency. And I look forward to supporting that work through my role on EMT and also assisting if you should wish to bring forward any motions.
Through the chair to Vice Chair Harrison, thank you very much for your appreciation of our report today. If I may add to the EMT environmental management team topic, we have already opened applications for a senior student senator from grades 9 through 12 and a junior student senator, grades 7 through 8, to join the EMT this upcoming year. In fact, it has been one of our most popular applications to fill out so far, and there is clearly an interest in being involved in the EMT, so I thank you very much for your appreciation.
Thank you for that excellent report. And as I was sitting there listening, especially to the climate emergency information, I was wondering if the trustees would be interested in actually tackling that within our own committee of the whole, to see how, have our discussions about it, see how we could help with environmental things.
I actually have a question for the director later tonight that I've already asked him regarding something like that. So, I mean, it was going to be a notice of motion, which is coming up, right?
That's fine. We'll do that. Okay. So, yes, that was an excellent report. Thank you very much for the update. And it was, I only made it for the second half, but it was great. Okay, so we are, 5.2 is action items for October 16th, but we, at this point, do not have any listed. We will have stuff for that meeting, though. Don't be afraid of that. Now up to 5.3, there's no information items for this evening. And 5.4, notices of motion. Do we have any notices of motion? Trustee Amos.
Thank you. So as we just heard from our student trustees, and we've also heard from many of our students, the last 2 Fridays there have been many of our students who have been involved in rallies regarding climate change. And as board leaders and as adults who are responsible for over 65,000 students. Sorry, my zeros, I was going to say 6,500, but it's way more than that. I believe as a board, we need to model the behavior that is required to help our students be responsible for helping change this world and to be responsible for helping guide them. One of the things I believe we already as a board are doing many items within the board, and such as eco-schools and social action clubs and greening projects and outdoor learning. But I would like to make a motion to request the director to maybe make a list of what actually is happening in this board, and then for to have it brought to the board, back to the board, and then from that, we as trustees can determine our next actions.
Thank you for that notice of motion. And when will you be?
I'll write something up for the next
board meeting. Okay, sounds good. We have. There was someone briefly on the list. Okay, Vice Chair Al Harrison.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Chair. Am I able to make a comment on that topic?
Why not?
Okay, so I just wanted to let you know that at the environmental management team and at our last meeting, I reported that the committee was making just such a list, making note of things like the green meetings protocol and the banning of single-use plastic bottles and so on. So I think that that would be a good resource and a good starting place. My personal opinion, and I think one that also was discussed at the environmental management team, is that since globally this has been a youth-led initiative by and large, that it would be really great if any motion around declaration of a climate emergency specifically, if that is something that students are interested in, that it could emanate from our student senate. But that a declaration should be more than just a declaration, that it should also have a suggestion of action and real impact that we can have. So I think with a combination of what you said, understanding where we are currently as our baseline and perhaps what will come through students, that we can make a meaningful proposal moving forward. And I would just say also that other school boards seem to be jumping on. Sudbury, the school board in Sudbury also declared a climate emergency, Rainbow, in the last week or so. So I think that around the province, hopefully, there will be some momentum through education systems as well.
Can I respond?
Go ahead and respond.
I'm really glad to hear that, Vice Chair Al Harrison. And I do believe, though, it's our responsibility as leaders to make sure that we listen to the student voice and to act upon it, and that we need to help make the decisions that will enable our students to be those climate champions.
Great things are happening at this table. Okay, so no other notices of motion. We're up to the director's reports. Director Miller.
Thank you, Chair Drabantz. I have 3 items, and I suspect the longest one will be the elephant in the room, and that's the labor situation. So I'll do that last. The first item I want to say, I want to thank Trustee Reynolds for sending me this, is the Halton Food for Thought hosts a partner recognition event to celebrate the amazing accomplishments over the past year. And for those of you that don't know, Food for Thought is they work in all of our schools around breakfast programs. I don't know about all of our schools, but a great many of our schools, providing kids with breakfasts to help them learn. You can't learn if you're hungry. So, and we have some great people in the HDSP. So our winners from Oakville was the Student Volunteers of the Year, and I don't have the names of them, but the student team of Odenawi Public School and their Healthy Bin program. And the School of the Year in Oakville, and I actually volunteered at this one, those kids amazed me, was at Eastview Public School with the breakfast cart. That was last year I did it. In Burlington, the Volunteer of the Year is Jasmine Elliott, a community volunteer at the Tom Thompson Public School Breakfast Program. And the Student Volunteer of the Year is the student team of Maplehurst Public School, again with the Healthy Bin program. And in Halton Hills and Milton, the Volunteer of the Year is Julia Gruel, Program Coordinator at Sam Sher Public School Healthy Bin Program. And the School of the Year is Milton District High School. So congratulations, and more importantly than congratulations, thank you. So the next item is we said to the board at the very first board meeting of this year, a topic came up around period poverty as a result of some announcements in a couple of boards around the province. And we said at that time that there's many things that we're doing in a board, as a board, and have been doing for a great many years. And we said we would get back to this board with put a little bit, provide a bit more detail around that. So I wanted those announcements around what some boards are doing, in some respects, are not dissimilar to things we were already and will continue to do. One of the challenges around addressing period poverty in the schools, there's a belief, I think, that feminine hygiene products are handed out free, all the time, unlimited, and they're donated by corporations. That's not the case. There could be significant costs with a program like this because donations, as welcome as they are, they come and they go. They're not consistent, and it's difficult to have a sustainable kind of program based on donations. So you can kickstart things, you can do things at the beginning, which we have done in the past, and some of these boards are doing now, but I think a program has to be sustainable. And if, in order for it to be sustainable, you have to have some commitment that you've got donations in perpetuity, or you got to put money to it. And the costs we would estimate with dispensers, and the product could come up to close to $100,000 a year for this board in terms of all that equipment. Plus vandalism on the machines, the dispensaries, and all those other things. So I've got some stuff prepared here that I would tell that we've done some research on some other boards, and then I'm going to make a suggestion at the end, and a couple of superintendents are going to help out here. In other boards, responses varied from some doing very little or nothing to free product in gender-neutral bathrooms to coin-operated machines. We used to have coin-operated machines in this board, but they were vandalized at times, the maintenance costs, and so consequently most of them were taken out. And of course that would defeat part of the purpose, as this is to address period poverty, and then we're using a coin machine. So there's student fundraised baskets in bathrooms to signage indicating where to go if you are in need. We even looked at universities and colleges, and they are also looking at it. McGill University, for example, has a student vote to provide free products by a raise in student fees, so they're paying for it. University of Calgary, student-backed menstrual product initiative, which is modeled off the distribution of free condoms on campus. University of King's College, Halifax, the campus sexual health center supplies menstrual hygiene products that are free for students to pick up outside the student union offices. So that's at the post-secondary. I'm sure all post-secondary is doing something. We just took a sampling. So in our board, we used to have coin machines in all female washrooms. These were moved and not replaced as they were vandalized over the years. An informal survey of our grades 7 to 12 physical education teachers indicate that free product is provided to students who ask either in the phys ed office or the main office or both. In some of the boards, Always Changing has been announced as the corporate sponsor, donator of the product. They are providing some free products, but it's being developed by Procter & Gamble, and it's endorsed and promoted by OFIA and Phys Ed Canada. And they also provide educational pamphlets and resources as part of puberty education. They are providing free product, but will they be providing it next year and so on, or enough? So I'll come back to what we are going to suggest to trustees, what we are going to do about it in a second. But I'm going to turn to Superintendent Newton, who also did some looking into this around some of our schools.
Thank you. And through the chair. So in some of our schools, including, and this is just a sample, one of our middle schools for years has been providing a free cupboard that students don't have to come and knock and ask for permission. They're free cupboard in the main office. They just simply walk in like you would go to pick up any other supply, and they help themselves. They also have, in their neutral bathrooms, they have a cupboard in there as well. Again, it's unlocked. You can go in and help yourself, so you don't have to be embarrassed by asking for the product. In another high school, they have a program called Women in Leadership. And one of the initiatives that this school has done for the past 3 years is raise money and awareness for women's issues and health issues. And they monitor, fundraise, and support free baskets that they have in their gender neutral bathrooms. So again, they don't have issues with hoarding or throwing them all over the place. And it's student-led, student-driven, and these women are passionate about what they're doing for their school. In another school that both Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons and I happened to visit within 20 minutes of each other, walked into one bathroom and noticed that they had a basket right out on the central counter right there in the washroom for anyone to use the products that were displayed there. So again, the notion that students have to come and ask and be embarrassed about reaching out is certainly, we did not find that in the schools that we have been visiting and are aware of. We also raised this at our secondary principals executive meetings. So there were 8 folks that I met with yesterday on other issues and raised this issue, and all 8 schools had talked about pieces that they offer in their school that do not require female students to go asking for a product, that in fact students are well aware of where they can go and that they can access these products with dignity.
In part of the survey, some of our phys ed teachers have reported that they know the students who require some supports and so on. Now, having said all that, we don't really have a consistent method, a process out there. It's primarily relying on principals and phys ed departments, and et cetera, and so on. And we're also not sure how significant the problem is in our board in terms of affordability. So we think we need to hear from the students around this before we bring a recommendation, because if we're talking about dispensers in washrooms and ongoing operational costs of those dispensers plus product, we would be bringing a budget ask in this to this board. And we think if we're going to do that, we better have good data and good information around what that need is around affordability. I would suggest we're probably not meeting, you know, there are some going that this is a great challenge for. How big of a problem it is, and maybe there's another way we can address it and so on. It also caused admin council to think of other, and I don't want to conflate the two because they're not the same, but it also made us think about students in our board who may have challenges in getting toothpaste and getting other hygiene products because of affordability. So what we're suggesting is that we will go out and get student voice on these things and survey kids in an anonymous way, maybe identify their school. So if there's an issue in a particular school or a particular area, we can work to fix it in that area. So that's what we're suggesting at this point, because we're just not sure how big the problem is, and we're not sure what kind of budget that we'd have to put towards it that we'd recommend to this board. We don't want to put machines into washrooms and them either not be used, or they just stay full the whole time, or they're used inappropriately and things like that. So, Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons or Salmini or Newton, anything else to add? Or so I'm kind of looking. We don't need a motion on this, but I'm looking to trustees for a kind of head nod if you think this is the way to go, or questions or whatever. Okay.
Okay, Trustee Amos. Okay, no one else has any questions? Oh, Trustee Reynolds.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us a verbal report on this. I really appreciate hearing that we'll look to hearing from the students. This concern, I reached out to a couple of organizations because I wanted to understand sort of what the wider community concerns are. I spoke to the Compassion Society ED and a member from United Way to sort of understand how they're dealing with it. And Compassion Society indicated to me that feminine hygiene products are a huge need. They're the first things to run out. They're always looking for them, and that's a real issue. They expressed to me that, you know, in some cases people hoard them because they're so hard to get and so costly. So sustainability and wastage are a very important part of this this concern. But I think the bigger concern too is I think I would hope that we are looking everywhere, like we have Halton Learning Foundation. If we can reach out to see what kind of opportunities they could provide to us, reaching out to organizations that are currently dealing with this, as well as considering, I want to say, other products. I don't know what our partnership agreement is through OFIA, but certainly there are products on the market that are environmentally friendly and long-sustaining. I'm talking about the Diva Cup. So I would be very grateful that before a report comes to us, that we make sure that we've overturned every stone here.
Go ahead.
Through your chair, Drabens, to Trustee Reynolds. Certainly, we will look into this as much as we're able to. I think we'll be able to. Like I said, I do want to go back to, we're still not sure how big an issue it is in our schools in terms of the affordability aspect of it. I think trustees would agree that's the primary driver behind this, is to support girls and young women who cannot afford, or their families cannot afford these products, as opposed to just providing products in schools, because that's, in terms of the finances involved, that would be a big undertaking for a board. But so we think we need to do some work to find out how big of an issue it is, how big of a problem it is, and again, emphasizing the affordability aspect of it.
Vice Chair Al Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, I really appreciate what Superintendent Newton said around the dignity piece and how the schools have developed systems that allow these students to not have to ask and to access products when they need them in a place that they know about and that is a safe space for them. So I wonder in the survey, in addition to asking about the affordability piece, is just to ask whether the existing systems are working where they are in place, because we may not have to go down a road of, you know, expensive machines and so on. You know, we may have best practices in place already that could just be diffused across the system in a more fulsome way.
Through you, Chair Drabens, to Vice Chair Al Harrison, absolutely. I think that's part of our intent, is to look at what's working, where it's not working, and allowing these young women to maintain their dignity and so on.
Trustee Shuttleworth.
Thank you, through the chair. This is just really quick, but carrying on from what Vice Chair Al Harris said, I think, again, when we're looking at the basket idea that Superintendent Newton spoke about, I think that when you're looking at it from affordability aspect, and what Trustee Reynolds, I think, was trying to hint towards is the whole idea that when we have healthy food baskets, the whole message with those food baskets is anybody can take from it, so that there is not a stigma attached to people who take from that basket. So that, I think, is the sort of the sticky point around the idea of affordability, that we want to create that it's there for anyone who might need it.
Through you, Chair Drabens, to Trustee Shuttleworth. That's part of the challenge, though, because the food baskets is different in that that's all donated. There's no guarantee that these products will be donated. And we may be coming to this board and saying, you know, we want to budget $100,000 for this. And I think that's a very serious consideration for us as a board. Should we be providing for even those that can afford, so to speak? And that might sound harsh, but so it is a challenge. I understand the stigma attached and all that that you're suggesting, as we all do, but we also cannot just be providing for everybody. It's unsustainable. We just couldn't do it.
Quick follow. Again, I think I agree with you that it is a very sticky point, but I just kind of think that if we are able to get those donations for food baskets, what's the difference? Like, how could we not look at the same kind of thing? You know, it's an ask, right? It's always an ask. Even the food baskets, it's an ask. But if we have that same momentum behind feminine hygiene projects, I don't see that there would be much difference in the community's response to our ask. I would hope.
Through you, Chair Drabens, to Trustee Shuttleworth. I mean, we're not going to have a big debate about this, but there is a difference. There is a difference. We have had donated in the past, and it stopped. So I don't think because the good intentions of the people who ran the programs changed, but corporations themselves, there's a bottom line. And we're one board of 72 in the province. And their raison d'etre is to make money. With many of our food donations come because people also raise funds for those food donations, and they pay them. So it is a more challenging aspect. And as I think it was, I'm looking at Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons, I think 2017-18, we did have essentially a free program around the entire board, and then they stopped the donations. So that's where the challenge comes. So okay.
Trustee Lau.
I would just like to say, for the Student Senate, we agree with the recommendation of putting up the survey. When is that going to be put out? Because we're hoping that we can get this survey out to the students so then they can also share it with their schools as well.
Through your chair, Revenge to Trustee Lau, we're not ready to do it yet because I was kind of looking for approval from the board here, like nods, just to say, yeah, this is the way to go, and then we'll start working on it. But I'm looking at Superintendent Blackwell, who's the head of research. But I think it would be good if students helped to build the survey with some of the questions. So I will leave it to Superintendent Blackwell to go. We agree with you. We want to get it out fairly quickly. Otherwise, we've lost the school year before we get it out and stuff. So.
Trustee Oliver.
Thank you. Through your chair. I certainly like the idea of collecting data and getting a perspective on how big of an issue or challenge it is, and being able to maybe identify some schools that are at more risk. And certainly it makes a great project for the Student Senate and for our school councils to be involved in. But what I'm concerned about is that data might actually tell us that there is a very small number of students, and then that becomes counter to our desire to treat those students with dignity and give them the dignity that they don't have to come and ask that the products are available to them. So I love the idea of a designated free cupboard, of baskets in washrooms where students will have free and easy access to the products. And the reality is that those who need it will use it at the time they need it. And those who are desperate might hoard some of the items. But I don't think we're going to see every female student taking just because it's there. And I think we've learned those lessons from our breakfast programs, from the carts. Food is freely and readily available in the baskets, and students know it's there, and when they need it, they take it, and if they don't need it, they don't. And often those carts come back and the food is used the following day. So I just want to be cautious around how we're going to use that data and what process we might put into place.
Okay, there's no more speakers, so I have something. I have a couple things. One is that I know when this was discussed on social media, that Leslie Mansfield of the Halton Learning Foundation actually did speak up on social media, saying this is something that they do quite a bit of funding for. So I think that she'd be a great person to speak with. Also, just to let you know that OSSTF teachers do a Tampon Tuesday. So they they bring products for schools. I think accessing school councils is a great way to go, especially at our elementary level, because they tend to be larger councils. They're full of parents. There tend to be a lot of moms. They've been there, they've grown up, they know, and that's I think that school councils would be very supportive in their efforts, and also some of those schools that are have more means than others may be willing to raise funds, products to help the schools that are maybe in our more socially, economically depressed areas. So I think that, looking beyond our own budget is also the way to go. And I don't necessarily mean going to the corporate level, because I agree, corporate donations only last so long. But I think if there is sort of a something that's kind of built into the not mandate, but an idea for school councils to take on part of, if not all of, the funding of these sorts of things. I think we could really take this to a next step. But I do agree that a survey is great, but we also need to keep in mind that poverty in Halton is growing, so we have to make sure that we don't take that baseline that we do get from this one survey as that's it forever. It'll grow. So there's no more speakers on the speakers list on this, so you may want to move to another topic.
Thank you, Chair Vance. So the elephant in the room, so to speak, is we are currently in a situation where CUPE, Canadian Union of Public Employees, are in a work the rules situation. They have been since Monday, and I don't have to talk about the list of the things that they're not doing, but essentially they're not cleaning non-ministry supported areas like gyms and hallways and things like that, taking garbage out of the school to the curb. If it's already out of the school, they'll take it to the curb and then bring it back in, but they won't take it out of the school. But as of Monday, CUPE has announced today that they will be withdrawing all their workers as of Monday, October the 7th. And as a result of that, there's obviously some big implications for our schools, our staffs, our kids, and their parents. To that end, we have sent a message out to all our community this evening, letting them know that our intention, and I emphasize this, our intention is to remain open as of next week, Monday for sure, Monday, Tuesday. Our CUPE, and there may be some misconceptions out there because CUPE represents different workers in different boards and a variety of them. In our board, in the HDSB, the only workers that CUPE represents are our caretaking staff and maintenance workers. They do not represent educational assistants. They do not represent early childhood educators. They do not represent clerical staff. They do not represent teachers, etc. It is only our caretakers and maintenance staff. In some boards, our coterminous board, they have, CUPE is the representative, or their EAs and so on are members of CUPE. That's not the case in our board. So we are intending to keep the schools open. It's going to pose challenges for us and our staffs, and in particular our principals and vice principals, because we will have no cleaning staff in our elementary schools at all. We'll have no CUPE members in our schools. At our secondary schools, we do have contract cleaners, and those contract cleaners will continue to clean, but they usually work alongside or in conjunction with CUPE, so there will be an impact on secondary schools as well. So having just kind of said all that, I will open up to questions for trustees. Some of those questions, Executive Officer McFadden will answer most of them, but some of your questions we may not be able to answer in a public forum because they might be subject to negotiations. The final thing I will say, that this walkout, this strike by withdrawal of services by CUPE is against central bargaining. It is not against this board. This is central bargaining, not local bargaining. And it's important to make that distinction because you, the Board of Trustees, have no ability to address it in terms of getting people back to work. We can't negotiate with them. We aren't negotiating with them because it's all being done at a central table where the government of Ontario is represented by the Crown and the school board associations are represented by OPSPA in the public board and the Catholic boards and various other ones. So I think it was important to get that out there if there are people watching so that they understand. We've also sent messages to all our staff tonight to let them know of the situation. And earlier this afternoon, we sent messages to all our principals and vice principals as well. So I'll turn it open for questions now, and we'll try to answer best we can.
Okay, Trustee Amos.
Thank you, and through you to the director, thank you very much for your report. So you said a message went home to all of our community. Could you also share it with trustees? Because some of us do not receive those emails?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Someone just share it with everybody.
Okay, Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much. Two questions through the chair, to the director. Two questions, please. The first one would be, and both of the questions are concerned with safety and security for all on our school sites. Would we anticipate that picket lines would interfere with the coming and going from schools? I know in the morning it's very, very busy traffic around schools, and it could be very problematic if the flow was interfered with in some of our very trickier areas, I guess, in school communities. Second part of the question is, who in the buildings would be assigned to be totally familiar with all of the emergency systems? Example, should a fire alarm be invoked or any other sort of emergency within a building?
Officer McFadden will address it.
Yes, so we've published a picket protocol for all of our staff that will be entering our premises. In short, the short answer is that all workers have the right legally to enter their place of business. They can't be impeded, harassed, or intimidated in any way by striking workers. Picketers are to be on public property, and while they might, for information purposes, stop a car and hand out a pamphlet, it should be a short period. We'll be monitoring that. Our administrators will be monitoring the general flow of traffic in and out of the school, and if there's concerns, we'll address those. In terms, what was your second question? I have a short memory tonight. Yes, our principals will be fully aware of all of the emergency systems necessary to operate the schools in the absence of the custodian.
Vice Chair Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. My question is about any foreseen implications for our community partners, like the daycares that are in schools. I know, for example, Oakwood has a child care center as well. Are there any implications there?
You want to take it? Okay, through you, Chair Drabens to Vice Chair Harrison. Daycares will operate as normal. Our principals will be in to open up the schools and so on, because the daycares are actually part of us. So, and the same with our before and after school programs as well.
Okay, seeing no one on the list at this point, I just have a question with regards to, well, mine's pretty specific to, we have Dr. Frantier Hayden and Haber Community Center and the library all in one building. And how is that going to be affected? How's the community going to be affected? Is there any issues with regards to that situation?
It's my understanding that there's a separation right now of the responsibility for the public areas versus the school areas in terms of cleaning. So that will, the schools that have community centers attached, the community center parts will continue to be cleaned by their staff, and our school will be maintained at the level that we are able to maintain it during the sanctions. So there may be a noticeable difference between the community center aspects of the school and the school aspect of the school.
And Trustee Reynolds.
Thank you. I'm asking on behalf of the community. There's lots of parents out there who volunteer in our breakfast programs, our snack programs, and they would want to know how to proceed. Can they continue to deliver this program to the students and do some of the activities that would result in setup or cleanup in the program?
The short answer is yes, that volunteers can continue to contribute to the schools in the ways that they have pre-strike. The caveat to that would be that the work of striking QP members would not be taken over, or volunteers would not be increasing their volunteerism by doing the work of striking workers. But in terms of the breakfast program, if they've been volunteering to set up, take down, and volunteer during that program, that could continue.
Okay, Director Miller.
Thank you, Chair Vance. Thanks for the questions. It is important to note that there is bargaining starting soon that will carry on right through the weekend. So we may be in a situation where none of this comes to pass, that an agreement is reached between in Labour parlance, it's the Crown, but it's the Government of Ontario really, and the school board associations, that an agreement could be reached prior to Monday. And if that's the case, then it's business as usual on Monday with all our QP workers back in. Now, if we do get to the situation where the strike does come to reality, it's important for the public, and this is partially what our message was, that strikes are quite often periods of uncertainty and unpredictability, and they're fluid. Situations happen very quickly, and decisions have to be made very rapidly. In this particular situation, what is of paramount importance for us as a board is the health and safety of our students and our staff. So as a consequence of that, we will be having meetings on a daily basis with a senior team with information from all our schools. And so to just give an example, there'll be a meeting on Monday, what's everything going on? And at some point, and I think it's important that the public be aware of this, at some point a decision may have to be made to close the schools because of health and safety and welfare and well-being of those that come to those buildings. That decision would come quickly, and unfortunately it would not be able to provide much more than 24-hour notice to families, which will be very difficult for some families in our communities. Be very difficult for many to figure out what to do, but it's I don't want to relate it to a snow day, but it's similar in terms of snow day in terms of the timing, but it could be a longer period of time than a snow day. We are going to do our best to prevent that from happening at all, but we have several QP people that clean our schools every day. We have about 24 hours of cleaning in a school per day between all the staff working there and so on, and we will be going down to 5 or 6 hours based on the people's ability to do it. That's difficult over a long period of time. So I didn't want to, we're certainly, our intention is to stay open as long as possible, as long as people are safe, as long as health and welfare and well-being is looked after. But I think it's important that people understand that this is a unpredictable a situation, and things can change fairly quickly. So I don't know, Executive Officer McFadden, you have anything to add or no? No. And that's all. Thanks.
Okay, so I just want to, so you're saying that people may get 24 hours or less notice if the school's going to close. So you're saying kind of have alternative daycare plans like you would for a snow day ready?
Through Chair Vance, I would say, as much as it pains me to say it, and as much as I understand how for some families it must be extremely difficult to do this, the answer to your question is yes. They need to be prepared.
Okay. Okay, so we are, flip my page. So we're now up to communications from the chair. So in your package, you'll see that there's a letter from Elena De Batista, who's the director of Our Kids Network. And in that letter, there's a link to a survey focused on North Oakville called Youth Voices Matter. So that's on page 27 of your of your package. And also, someone handed me this notice at the beginning of the meeting that it's a press release that Stuart Miller, appointed to the Advisory Council of the EdCan Network, Director of Education of the Halton District School Board, brings a wealth of education systems leadership experience to this Pan-Canadian Advisory Council for countrywide issues and trends in public education. Stuart Miller was appointed to the EdCan Network Advisory Council at its annual general meeting on September 27th in Toronto. Stuart has been the Director of Education for the Halton District School Board since 2015. After a career path in education that included serving as Superintendent, Associate Director, and a science, math, biology teacher, he has been instrumental in creating the new Welcome Center for newcomer students and is currently implementing an expansion of the international student program within his board. Stuart's exemplary education system leadership through this commitment to ensuring that all students thrive in one of Canada's most culturally diverse regions will serve to deepen our collective perspective at our advisory council table, says EdCan Network Chair Denise Andre. EdCan Network Advisory Council members are drawn from all regions of the country and interests in education, including provincial and territorial governments. So if anybody's looking for more information about our director's appointment, it's available at www.edcan.ca/council. So congratulations. So now we're up to committee reports. Does anybody have any committee reports at all? Trustee Amos.
Thank you. I have 2 committee reports this evening. The first is the Mental Health and Wellbeing Strategy Advisory and Steering Committee met on Tuesday, and we were looking at the 2019-2020 action plan for the board, and there was some good discussion, and it will be coming back for further approvals. Also, the Halton Learning Foundation had a meeting on Tuesday as well, and just a minute, where did my notes go? I just wanted to let you know, as of the end of September, the Halton Learning Foundation, through the various program, had already served over 190 students, which is up over 125% from last year at this time. So some of that is in response to more poverty in the area, but also it's also in response to the Halton Learning Foundation educating our system about their availability and the fact that they are there to help support students. So kudos to them.
Vice Chair Al Harrison.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Chair, just a quick reminder that Committee of the Whole is meeting on October 23rd this month, so not next week due to the observance on that evening, but on October the 23rd. So if anybody has agenda items, please let me know. Or if you're curious about what's on the list so far, please check out the shared document. There's quite a list in there so far. Thanks.
Trustee Gray.
Thank you, through the chair. I was advised earlier today that we have work ahead of us coming up with about 5 nominees for the Inspire Award. So information will flow through to all trustees shortly so that you can help evaluate this past month's nominees. Thank you.
Trustee Rocha.
So I have an update from the PIC committee. The PIC committee met twice in the month of September, and this is all leading up to the annual PIC conference, which will be on Saturday, October 19th. So just a call out to all parents, guardians who are interested in attending. It is a free conference. You can register online, And it will be, again, Saturday, October 19th at Garth Webb Secondary School in Oakville.
Okay, and just as a slight aside, we, a small committee met earlier this week and on a completely different topic, but we ended up looking at our governance procedure for our meetings, and it says in there that committee meeting minutes are to be given to trustees. And in some discussions with the manager of the director's office, I almost said director of the manager's office. That's what it is. And a thought came up that in this particular part, that we can actually make a link to all of our minutes for committee of the whole, so that a way to save paper for one thing, but it would be just a constant link. And as people look at their the community, which would be mostly accessing our agendas electronically anyways, it would be right on the first page or in the agenda for them to connect directly. And I was just wondering if there is sort of a consensus for adding that, or if, yeah. Can I get a nod or a smile? It's a nod, a nod. Okay. No, actually, this will just be a standard link to our committee of the whole minutes. So we don't have to do anything. It's all a manager Gortmaker. Okay. Okay, so we have another speaker on the list, Trustee Collard.
Thank you. So I'm going to tag on to what you just said there about the links and reducing paper and go back to the climate crisis that we're currently experiencing. And I know that having a printed copy of the agenda is the preference of some trustees. However, I was hoping we could have trustees do a little bit of thinking about whether or not they really need to have a printed copy of their agenda package. Sometimes they're quite lengthy, could be up to 100 pages, and try to reduce our use of paper. I realize that for some reports we do want them printed, like the LTAP. It would be incredibly difficult for us to read the long-term accommodation plan without having the maps in that size. But I would like to not challenge, but see if perhaps we could work a little bit towards reducing our paper use. We've come a long way in the past few years. We no longer have single-use bottled water, which I think is commendable, but we can always improve.
Vice Chair Harrison had a little thread on this.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, I just wanted to let you know that I added the topic to the committee agenda, just because paper generation is one, but there might be others as well that people feel we could contribute to. Does that work? Great.
Okay, Trustee Amos.
Thank you. As a follow-up to Trustee Rocha's PIC committee report, I just wanted to let you know that Trustee Gray and I, and would welcome anybody else who is coming to the PIC conference, are doing a presentation on the trustee roles and responsibilities, and we're also going to discuss some of the current challenges and opportunities in education. So
that sounds fantastic. Okay, I know I'll be there, so. Okay, so that was just committee reports. We are now up to trustee questions and comments. Trustee Rocha.
Through you, Trustee Chair Gerbrands, to you. The report that was attached for the North Oakville Youth Is there a definition of what is North Oakville? What's the boundary of what's North Oakville? Does anyone know?
I don't know.
It doesn't. North of Dundas, north of Upper Middle, just in north of QEW.
The patch that they're looking at, through the chair to Trustee Rocha, the patch that they're looking at with this report is really around the Trafalgar corridor north of the highway.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, are there any more?
Sorry, one more thing.
Oh, go ahead.
We're going to end it on a good note. So on September 22nd, Trustee Garretts and I attended We Day in Toronto. Roughly 19,000 students and education staff came from across Ontario to listen to renowned speakers and performers, such as David Suzuki and Sarah McLaughlin. It was an inspirational day that celebrated a year of action that transformed communities and changed lives. So a big thank you to all the HDSB staff for supporting WE initiatives in our schools and turning our students into everyday heroes. Thanks.
That's great. So there are no more speakers. We have exhausted our agenda. We have to now go into private session. So I declare the public portion of this meeting adjourned, and we need to rise into private or reconvene into private. So, okay, all those, is there any discussion at all? Nope.
You guys can all go.
It's, that's what I, oh, it's a separate meeting. So we actually need to, then the meeting's adjourned because it's actually, it's a separate meeting. So I'm just going to cancel the voting. Sorry, Kevin. We're actually going into DPR, which isn't, it's a separate meeting, but it is private. So everybody that's not a trustee or steward, get out of here.